What is up, Sneeples? RTN season is just around the corner, and just like with the ProQuest season, we are going to give out some deck techs of budget decks. And these are not just any budget deck, these are budget decks that can take you to the top 8, get yourself a cold foil, and hell, maybe even get all the way, get that cold foil Jubil, get the Nationals invite, and that's where I'll be, so I'll definitely see you there. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Bravo. This is obviously an Altar, but Bravo is a Guardian that has always been lurking in the metas. He may have never been on top, but he's always getting some top 8s here and there, always providing pressure against Dromai, against Oldhim, and then just being able to race against Azalea and even Lexi. So overall, a very solid pick, and keeping it budget as well while keeping it competitive. Let's get into the deck itself. Let's see how we get it done.
Okay, so let's go over the deck itself here. Here we got Bravo being able to dominate with the ability. This is definitely a proxy that my old cold foil control team had. There is young Bravo. All right, when we're playing Bravo, we are going to be playing with Anathos. This is one of the best Guardian weapons out there. Coming in 3 for 4, but then having the caveat that if we have 2 or more cards that cost 3 or greater in our pitch zone, it gets +2. So it could come in for 6, and that is oftentimes what we look to do. Okay, so we're going to start with the helmet here. We're going to go with the Helmet of Eyes and Peaks. This is the budget version after all, so we are going to go with the more budget headpiece, having the 1 defense, but then in a pinch, perhaps we had to all red hand and we blocked up 3 of the cards. We can at least pitch the last red in order to get a extra intelligence points for the next turn. It has Battle Worn, so we can block with it and then kind of wait on that. Next up, we have the real money piece of this deck. However, this is still under the $100 budget, so you can afford to buy this legendary and still afford to buy or play this deck. Tectonic plating is so crucial when it comes to Bravo, particularly with the Anathos. Being able to pitch 1 high costing card to do tectonic plating and then another card to swing with Anathos will basically give you a seismic surge and allow your Anathos to come in for 6. Obviously, this is the most ideal value, and it's very, very common. Like, it's almost like sometimes that's your whole game plan throughout the game. So tectonic plating, very huge piece that we cannot look past. Next up is Crater Fist. Now, Crater Fist is also a little pricey. It's around $13, but it's just, you know, a big armor piece. And when you play Guardian, you're looking to have a fridge for armor. You're looking to have just a ton of armor to work with so that you can use your armor to block in order to give these big attack turns. So that's why we still have Crater Fist within the budget deck. And then finally, we have Iron Rot Legs. This is the one piece of armor that is still pretty weak when it comes to Guardian, but you know what? It's armor that blocks for 1, so we'll take it for that. All right, you'll have your no rune package. We're gonna run all 4 pieces of no rune equipment here, just because this is one of the best ways to be able to counter Kano and possibly Icelander as well. It's really just for the wizards. You will just bring in the boots against Rune Blade. Okay, let's get into the Bravo deck itself, and we'll start with some of the big hitters here. And the first one for sure is his specialization, and that's Crippling Crush. Crippling Crush is the best Guardian attack in your deck, coming in for a high cost of 7. However, if it deals 4 or more damage, your opponent must discard 2 cards at random. It comes in for 11, so a 7 for 11, 7-11, there it is. That blocks for 3, which is always going to be the thing for Guardian cards. Crippling Crush is great, especially if you compare it with the Bravo ability to dominate. So basically, for 9 resources, paying 2 here and then paying the 7 here, so that's pitching 3 blue cards, you can come in with a dominating Crippling Crush, and when you dominate it, it almost guarantees that the crush effect will happen. So coming in for a huge whopping 11, On top of that, making your opponent discard 2 cards at random. A very, very good card. Okay. Another very good card, especially for a certain amount of matchups, is Spinal Crush here. Spinal Crush is a 5 for 9, and has, if it deals 4 or more, your opponent loses go again, which is huge. A lot of times you have to just do one thing in order to get some other things set up, such as Lexi flipping over her arsenal, and then Azalea playing a like a pump. Well, basically Spinal Crush says no to all that, and obviously it stops go wide decks like Katsu and Phi. So Spinal Crush is really here to ruin the aggro deck's game plan. And that's what we want with our Guardian cards. We want them to come in big, and we want them to disrupt. Here it costs 5. If you can get 3 blues, you can afford to Bravo and come in with the Spinal Crush, and that is the idea. You just want to get big dominated attacks onto your opponent and force them into a tricky spot. Now, talking about big attacks, this is a Thunderquake, basically a 6 for 10. The ability here is that you can heave to at the end of your turn to put this in your arsenal face up and get 3 Seismic Surge. You can do that if it allows, but oftentimes this is just a 6 for 10, which is massive. No on hits here, just massive amount of damage, and that's what we look to do. Big amounts of damage as Guardian. Okay, here we have another on hit. This is Disable. This is a 5 for 9 as well. And this one deals, if it deals 4 or more damage, you put a card from their arsenal onto the bottom of their deck. So they basically lose their arsenal. Again here, 3 blues and a red, and you can dominate this card as well. So Disable, a very, very good card. We are going to be seeing some blue versions of that card as well. Finally, we got Chokeslam. Chokeslam is a 4 for 8. So if you can pitch 2 blues, you can go Bravo ability and Chokeslam. A 4 for 8 that makes it where if it crushes, which is 4 more damage, their attacks can't gain power. A lot of heroes in this meta look to pump up their attacks one way or the other. This prevents that from happening. So Chokeslam, a very good card. We're going to see both red and blue in this, but for the red, it's 4 for 8. Okay, so when we have such heavy costing cards, we need a lot of blues in the deck, and that's what we're getting into next. Now, when we're looking at our blues, and this is a blue Disable as mentioned before, so this instead of 9, it's for 7, which is still a really good number. When we're looking for our blues, we're looking for it to cost over 3 to work better with our hammer, and we're looking for it to block 3 because Guardians block very, very well. And then on a bonus effect, we're looking for it to have a power of 6 or greater. And this is just because of poppers. Droma is pretty relevant in the meta. It's not necessary for it to be power 6 greater, but it's preferred. So we got Disables here. We got blue Thunderquakes. So these are 6 for 8s here. We have blue Macho Grande. This is a 7 for 8, but with Dominate. So a very good blue card that attacks great in the late game. Here is our blue Chokeslam. This is a 4 for 6 with the crush ability with it. We have blue Buckling Blow, a 4 for 6, but that puts a -1 counter on an equipment they control, kind of like a drill shot for the Rangers, but here it is for the Guardians. And then we have a Crush the Weak. Now this one isn't a 6 power, but this is really for your heavy aggro decks like your Phis and your Katsus. And the reason why you play in this is because those decks tend to not like to block. And basically if you come in just for pitching 1 blue, come in for 5, you're coming in and they have to block, otherwise they won't be able to play their cards out of their hands. So very good against a deck like Phi. Even though it only comes in for 5, it still demands a block, and that's kind of what you're going for. Alright, getting back to the 6s, we have Debilitate with the Crush minusing 2 their next attack. And then we have Thump, Now Thump is an interesting one because Thump is really a 4 for 4, which is terrible value. However, if you can increase its power, then it has Dominate at that point, and if it hits a hero, they discard a card. So this transitions me into what we have to pump our attacks. And our first one is Buckle. So Buckle is a 3-cost Guardian action, still defense for 3. And it makes our next Guardian action gains Dominate and +1, and if it hits, you destroy the equipment with a -1 counter on it. This could be pretty nice because you have equipment out there like Grass of the Arknight that will still function even after having a -1 counter, or not being able to block effectively anymore. This destroys that equipment outright, and that's kind of what you're looking for to do. So Buckle gives your Guardian attack +1, Dominate, and with the on hit. Now it says Guardian attack, it doesn't say attack action, which means this can pump up the Antidotes. It can give it +1 to become a 5, or if it's, more than likely to become a 7 because you'll pay 3 to play this card and then pay 3 to attack Thanatos. So you basically will be a 7 power hammer that has a Dominate and an on-hit effect, and that's pretty good. Alright, another card we have, and we just have a 1-of because we were trying to keep the budget, but Tear Asunder, which is similar to Buckle, where it's a 3-cost pump that gives your next attack +1 and Dominate, but this one says if it hits, they discard 2 cards. This one's very, very good. That is why it's a little bit more pricier than the Buckle, but with a very good effect. And again, this just says attacks. It doesn't say attack action, so this will work with Anathos. Okay, now let's get into some non-Guardian pumps that we have. Here we have Pummel. Pummel is classically just a good Guardian attack reaction because it deals with clubs or hammers for the +4, as well as cards that cost 2 or greater to give the +4 and the on hit of discarding a card. So going back to Chokeslam here, this only costs 4. If you pitch 2 blues, you'll have 2 floating to play your Pummel. So then your Chokeslam becomes a 12 damage on hit, discard, and crush effect. Pummel, a very good tool for the Guardians to use. So good that we are also going to run the blue. Now, if you remember right, we have the Thump. Let me grab that out real quick. Thump here. So Thump is also a 4-cost. So if you pitch 2 blues, you can pay for a Pummel, whether it be blue or red. And then it will gain the Dominate, and it will gain that this card will force them to discard. Well, Pummel also does that. So then your Thump becomes discard 2 cards, which is pretty devastating for your opponent. So we like that. Finally, you'll see this in some Bravo decks. We're gonna put in this one because it's a cheap card and it's a little funky and we like it. Kind of a goofy Bravo card just because it's not a 3 or more and it only blocks for 2, but no one really expects it. No one really sees this card coming. This again can just even work with your Thump for free. You can just pump it up. A very good sneak attack card that can sometimes just win you the game based off that. No one really sees this card coming at all. And it's a 0 cost to play. So next, let's go over some of the auras. Guardians have access to auras. We have a 1-of Stamp Authority. The reason why we have a 1-of is because really this is only good to play on the very first turn. But it's blocks for 3, it pitches blue, and it costs 3. So even if it's like the 3rd turn of the game, you can still always pitch this for a hammer or paying for another card. But anyways, it enters the arena, and if you have 2 or more cards in your pitch zone that cost 3 or more, so paying for this and then using a card to pay for tectonic plating, so that will allow for this to happen, then you gain +1 intelligence, and then as long as this is in the arena, basically attack action hit effects don't trigger, and then it will go away at the start of your next turn. So it's kind of like a little safety net for on hit effects. That also gives you a +1 to your card count. So we like that card. Great turn 0 card for sure. Another great turn 0 card is Showtime. Again, if you get it not turn 0, it's not the worst thing, but this is your Bravo specialization. You get 2, and when it enters the arena, you can go search for a Guardian card. So this is a tutor effect. It stays around at the beginning of your action phase. You destroy Showtime, and then you draw a card. So it also draws you a card. So this card is very, very good. It is an action point, so you will only be able to play this, and you'll have to, do everything next turn. So this is a set up card. That's why it's so good at turn 0. But it really helps get your Crippling Crush when you need it, and it allows you to draw more cards in order to afford it. Now we're kind of getting into the, a lot of these cards will be main board, but we're also talking about some sideboard cards here. This Belting is mostly main board. This is a 2 for 5 with Go Again. And the reason why is because as long as a card in your pitch zone has higher attack power, which a lot of our cards have 6, so a lot of them do, this will have Go Again. So you can pitch a blue Buckling Blow here, and then you can come in for 5 with Go Again with 1 resource floating. So it works out pretty well that way. That's why Zealous Belting works very well with Bravo, and that's why we have it in the deck. Now, if you're a Guardian, you're going to come in big with attacks, but you're also very good at blocking. And so therefore, you're going to be running Fate for Scenes, just a 0 for 4 defense reaction to help block up some of those cards like Snatches and whatnot. And then if you're running Fate for Scenes, you're almost always also running Sink Belows, and that is no exception here. You're going to be running that as well. 3 of Sink Below. Probably don't need to explain this to you because you see it in almost every deck. Is just the best defense reaction. All right. However, being a Guardian, you are privy to some of the bigger defense reactions like Unmovable. You have a lot of blues in your deck, so paying 3 for Unmovable is not too bad. 3 for 7 covers up most attacks, especially if it comes from Arsenal. Then it becomes a 3 for 8, and then it really does cover up a lot of attacks. Very good for like the Mirror Guardian matchups or Azalea. It's cards or heroes that are looking to dominate. This is a very good card for. You also have Blue Unmovable. Now, Blue Unmovable is most of the time in the main deck, and the reason is because it's a blue that costs 3, and so it works for Hammer, it works for other stuff very well, and then sometimes you just need a D-React, and there it is. So, not the worst. Next up is Remembrance. This is definitely a sideboard card. This is more for the mirror match, just because those tend to be longer games, so it kind of comes down to who has more cards in their deck. Remembrance helps you keep the lead. Finally, we have Sigil of Solace. This is just gain 3 life, right? I mean, that's exactly what it says, and that's exactly what it is. It's particularly good when you're going against Aether Ashwings, just stuff that little pings that like Kodachis. This kind of negates, like playing one of these negates 2 Kodachi attacks, which is really nice. So. Okay, that is the Bravo deck. Bravo is extremely good. He just has good fundamentals. He's always going to be one of those heroes that is maybe will never like truly dominate a meta, but will always be present in the meta. So you can certainly pilot this deck to get top 8, to get your cold foil, and it really wouldn't be that much of a surprise to me if you're able to pilot this deck to win the whole thing. So that is our Bravo budget deck tech for you. Check out the link if you want to build it yourself and play it at your RTN. We are going to come out with a playthrough where I will be playing a match using this deck on a competitive CC on Talishar to kind of show how that goes. But until then, thanks for watching, guys, and keep on fabbing.